Hey everybody, welcome to our presentation on Seesaw. And today we're going to be sharing information on how to use Seesaw and literacy stations. So I'm going to be using Google Slides, and at the end of the presentation we will also be sharing the link to the slides with you. So my name is Samantha Patton, and I am the IST at Hanley Elementary. I am also the webmaster and the I3. I am a Seesaw ambassador. It's something that I'm really passionate about. So if it's something you're interested in, feel free to ask your principals if you would like for me to present on how to use Seesaw in your classroom. You can contact me anytime at spatton@garlandisd.net, and my Twitter handle is @MrsPatton2. My amazing webinar moderator is Ms. Jocelyn Martinez. She is the pre-K teacher at Parsons Pre-K. She is also the I3, and you can contact her at jcmarty1@garlandisd.net. So for today's agenda and goals, I'm going to show you a little bit about Seesaw and show you what it looks like. And then we're going to talk a little bit about balanced literacy, since that's the area that we're trying to improve in Garland. And we'll be looking at literacy station task cards, including read to self, read to someone, listen to reading, work on writing, and word work. So what is Seesaw? So Seesaw is a digital portfolio that collects students' digital work in a physical place. Everything is very organized, and so it makes assessment and conferences with parents much easier. It's a space where every student can create and share their own work. There are many different tools that are built into Seesaw that makes it easy for students to capture their learning, to reflect on what they've learned in class, and to develop new skills. And it's also a great parent communication tool that you're able to share all of the work that students put in their journal with parents. So here's a quick Wordle and words that teachers use to describe Seesaw. The biggest and largest word is easy. It's extremely easy. The first time that you get into Seesaw, you'll see that it's very intuitive. What I always did in my classroom is I would teach one student how to do a certain aspect of Seesaw, and then that student would teach everybody else. It's very, very easy. Kids pick it up very easily. It's also really empowering. It gives students a different audience to share their work, and so anytime they're sharing with other people besides you, then it usually motivates them to try a little bit harder. So, and there are many other ways that you can utilize Seesaw and the reasons why it's fantastic. So what does Seesaw look like? So I'm going to get out of presentation mode and go ahead and show you what Seesaw looks like from a teacher's perspective. So this is just my example Seesaw for this presentation. I am an IST currently, so I do not have a classroom. So I'm not using Seesaw as much as I used to. But if I click on this top left-hand corner, you can see all of the different classes that I've created. So I still have access to the student work from 2 or 3 years ago. All right, right here, this is where, I'm sorry. This is where all of the student work is located. Right now, I am on just Rolando's folder. So I can see all of Rolando's work here. And I'll go in more depth of the different pieces that are included in his journal later on. If I click on class journal, this will actually show me all of the work that students have posted recently. It might take a few minutes to upload. But if I scroll through, I can see all of the different items that have been added to everybody's journal, which is nice to see. Looking over here on the right-hand side, the little wrench is where you're able to change any of the settings, to add students, and to also change whether students are able to see each other's work or to edit. This is where all of that is housed. And if you ever want to learn about how to get started with Seesaw, there are lots of different webinars that take you step by step. All right, looking down here, this is the journal. So this is where all of the students' names will be housed. Activities is actually brand new. I believe they just updated it this week. So I'm going to be honest, and I do not know what activities is, but I'm sure it's wonderful. Then going to the right, you have your inbox, and this allows you to message parents and teachers. It actually reminds me of the app Remind, where you would send them a little message and then they would get a notification on their phone or in the email. This does the exact same thing. With Seesaw, you can also enter the skills, so the TEKS, and organize the work that way. I've never actually done that, but if you like to stay organized, this would be a great tool to use. Seesaw also allows you to blog. So if you would like to share student work with a broader audience, people outside of the school and outside of families, maybe with other classrooms, you can actually post items onto your blog for everybody to see. One aspect of the blog that I really like is it's not open to everybody. You can actually change the settings. If you do want it open to everybody, that's an option for you. But another option is you can actually create a password, and only the people with that password will be able to view the blog. So it does have some safety nets within the blog. And I've actually done another webinar on a blog. So if you'd like to check that out, feel free to check out my YouTube. To share the student journal with students, they actually just need a QR code. So I'm going to click student code, and it's going to create a QR code. If I click print class QR code poster, it's going to create a PDF that has this exact same QR code. And what I did is I would post several of these PDFs or pieces of paper that have this code all around the room. So anytime students needed to access the classroom journal, they would just take their iPad or their Chromebook, they would scan the QR, and then they would immediately be entered into the Seesaw journal. So it's very easy. And it's very easy to also invite families. So you just click invite families, and then you would click print paper invites, and it will actually create a PDF for every family member to use to be able to see that student's work. So if I scroll down, you can see that this is the piece of paper that I would give to Kelly's family, and they would scan this QR code and they would have access only to Kelly's work. They wouldn't have access to everybody in the class, which I really like, because as a parent, you're really only interested in your child's work. And then if I scroll down, it has a PDF for every single student. So I'm going to go ahead and go back into my Seesaw. This is the most important aspect of Seesaw, and this is where students can add their work. So you just click the plus button. Again, it's very intuitive. Again, I don't know what share activity is yet. I will have to explore that later on. But what we'll be doing is we'll be posting to Student Journal. And from here, there are different options. You can add photos, videos, drawings. You can add files, including Google Drive files. You can add notes, and then you can also add links to different websites. So that's just a quick overview of what Seesaw looks like from a teacher's perspective. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and go back to the presentation. If you have any questions, be sure to ask them on the live chat. Jocelyn is working diligently to make sure that all of your questions are being answered, and also share some time with you at the end. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to presentation mode. Sorry, the internet's being a little bit slow. As I'm waiting on the presentation to load, hopefully I'll be able to pull up the task cards. So I've actually I'm going a little bit ahead, but I've actually created task cards that you can use within your literacy stations. And I will share the link to them so that you are able to edit them or use them however you wish. So let's see if it'll let me. So I'm actually not going to go back into presentation mode because it's a little bit slower each time I try to do that. Hope that's okay. All right. So in Garland ISD, we are moving towards a balanced literacy philosophy. And so that's going to include interactive read alouds, shared reading, small group reading, guided reading, and also independent reading within your reading and writing blocks. I utilized Seesaw, these task cards in the literacy stations, mostly within the small group reading, guided reading, and independent reading. The most important reason why it's useful to use Seesaw during your literacy stations is because it holds students accountable for their work. One of the problems that I had before Seesaw came about was I would have students work in workstations while I was doing guided reading, but I wasn't always able to see exactly what they were working on. So sometimes I just really could not gauge whether or not students were doing what they were supposed to and practicing the skills that they were working on. So Seesaw kind of helps to solve that problem. Again, I showed you those task cards that I've created. These task cards offer students an authentic way to show their learning. And then there are task cards on the Seesaw webpage under Seesaw resources. And once we share the link to the presentation, you can click on Seesaw resource and it will take you straight there. And then I've also created task cards for this particular presentation, and that's going to be on Google Drive. And again, you can click right here to access those. And it's going to be a growing document. If you are inspired and have a new way you would like to use Seesaw in the classroom, feel free to email me, tweet me, and I would be happy to create a task card specifically for the activity that you thought of. And then that way we can share it with all of the different teachers who are also utilizing this amazing app. Here are some samples of the task cards that I've created and are going to share with you. All right, so our first literacy station is independent reading, or read to self. Some ideas that I had for read to self was for students to record one book or story into Seesaw that they feel they can read with expression and fluently. There are two ways that I've gone about having them record. And one way is for them to take a video of themselves reading the book aloud with expression, and then they can use the text or the comments to describe what they read. And so we'll see if it will let me show you this example.
The sun is in the sky. The stars are in the sky.
So that was just a quick preview of using the video to record a student reading aloud. Another way you can do it is to actually take a photo of the book cover and then have the students use a microphone to record themselves reading aloud. And then the students could also use the text or comments to describe what they read. Here is a poetry example of a student who took a picture of the poem and then read it aloud using the audio.
No Difference by Shel Silverstein. Small as a peanut, big as a giant, we're all the same size when we turn off the light. Rich as a sultan, poor as a mite. We're all worth the same when we turn off the light.
So that was a great example of those two ways that you can assess fluency using Seesaw. And again, as soon as students learn how to use it, it's pretty intuitive and they remember pretty easily. But these task cards are really handy to have. I would probably post them around the area that you have read to self so that for the students who forget, they have a visual. Another way you can also do a fluency check is for you, the teacher, to take a picture of a passage and then add it to your journal. And that is something that I suggest, not only create a journal for your students, but also for yourself. And then you could have your students go to Seesaw, click on your journal, and then they can find the passage, click on the 3 dots, and copy and edit to their own journal. And from there, they can add the audio and use the draw feature. And I'll actually show you what that looks like. All right, so I'm going to go to Mrs. Patton, which is my journal. And inside my journal, I have taken a screenshot of a passage. So what students would do, so this is the passage. They would click on the 3 dots. They would copy and edit. And then they would hit record. And as soon as you hit record, it says 3, 2, 1. They'll begin reading the passage. And once they're finished, they would check the check mark, and that would enter it into their Seesaw. So that's another great way to utilize Seesaw for reading fluency and read to self. And again, in the task card, I went over all of those directions. It's really important for teachers to actually show that they've been listening or reading what the students have been putting in their journals. One way I did this was to leave a comment on the video celebrating the strategies you noticed the child using. You can share a strategy that the student could use to improve their reading. And you can also encourage parents to listen to their child's reading and then leave a comment as well. So I'm going to go over to Rolando and show you an example of him reading, and then how I created a comment. So he took a picture of a reading passage, and then I'll do a little small snippet of him reading.
It was a great day to go out and play. Ned has his hat on his head.
So after I listened to Rolando read, I left a comment right below, very similar to Facebook, and I said, I liked how you went back and reread the first sentence in order for it to make more sense. So it was really specific feedback for that student, and it also shows the student that I was actually listening to what he posted in his journal. Again, you're wanting to hold students accountable, but as the teacher, you need to be held accountable as well to actually look at the work that students are sharing. So the next literacy station that I used in my classroom was Read to Someone. This one's pretty easy to do. What I would usually do is have students record or film their partner reading and then ask questions to the person who was reading the book. And so what kids can do, they would use the video portion of Seesaw to record their partner and then add a caption or comment to tell what questions they asked their partners. Listen to reading is another aspect of the literacy stations that I used. One way I utilized Seesaw in this literacy station is I created a QR code of a student who had read a book fluently on Seesaw and allowed other students to listen to the reading using a QR code. And I'll show you what that looks like as well. So if I go back to my Seesaw, if you click on the 3 dots right below the video or audio, and then you click Get Item QR Code, it actually creates a QR code for you. And all you have to do is you can save this to your desktop and then print it, maybe create a little booklet of all of the QR codes of students reading, and then that can be a listening station. So they would just need some sort of device that has a QR reader to be able to listen to their own classmates reading with expression. And I would also highly recommend for you to record yourself reading, or maybe even have another adult or a parent or your administrator or your counselor to read out loud a book and to film them and then add it as a posting on your journal and then create a QR to share it with the class. So it's a really cheap way to create a listening station. Another way you can create a listening station is to add a link to an online read aloud for students to listen to during workstations. And then you can also have the students respond to the text by adding a comment. And I'll show you what that looks like. So if I go to my journal, which is where I usually posted my links, and then I'm going to scroll down right here. This is an example of me sharing a link. So I created a safe share link, and it, of course, it won't take me to it, but it's a storyline online. It's usually free. You can access it from most of our computers, but it's a great website that has different read alouds for students. Students just click it and it takes them straight to the link. And then one of my students responded, the story reminded me of the story Goodnight Moon. My mom used to read me that story when I was little. So you also need to make sure that whatever link you use is usable to your students. All right, so next is work on writing. This is an opportunity for students to share exactly what they wrote. Student can take a picture of their writing and read it aloud by adding audio or creating a video. Again, I did this 2 ways, similar to Read to Self. Students can either take a video and record themselves reading their own writing. So I'll show you a quick example.
At my trip at the airplane, we are going to Georgia. Then we left.
So that was a quick snippet of a student using the video camera to record themselves reading. You can also have them take a photo of their writing and then use the microphone to record themselves reading their writing. This is really, really important for kindergartners, first graders who are still using inventive spelling, because a lot of times an outsider, their audience, can't necessarily read what they wrote, but the student's so passionate and so proud of their work. So Seesaw is great because they can take a picture of their work. And if you can read this, it's pretty impressive. But I'll have you listen to what he wrote.
I can go home by myself.
So if a parent was connected to the Rolando Seesaw Journal, they would immediately get a notification that their child has uploaded something to Seesaw, and then they would be able to actually listen to what the student wrote about, even though they might not have been able to read it on their own. And then you can leave comments to the student regarding what they did. Similar to Read to Self, it's important for you to also be accountable to look at student work. So you can leave a comment on the video celebrating the strategies that you noticed the child using in their writing. You can share a strategy the student could use to improve their writing, and you can also encourage parents to listen to their child's writing and leave comments as well. All right, word work. This is the last station. Word work, students can take a photo of the words they worked on and then describe the activity or skill. And that's exactly what I did for the task card. So I will show you a few examples of activities that I utilize during workstations. I used to be a primary teacher, so most of my examples are geared towards that, but you can definitely think of ways to incorporate it in the intermediate levels as well. So this first example is looking at sight word fluency. So the student just took a picture of a list of sight words and then practiced reading it aloud.
Can and we two and one am the like have 2, 3.
All right, so that's one example because I know many of my students need work on their sight word fluency. And then let me scroll down. Another example is students using stamps to create words. I usually have them create words based on whatever phonics or spelling skill we were working on. For example, with this activity, they were working on digraphs, and so using the stamps to create words using digraphs. This is an example of a student alphabetizing words. I just write words on popsicle sticks, and then the students alphabetize them on this recording sheet, and then they just take a picture of it. So they don't actually have to write anything on the recording sheet. They're just putting the popsicle sticks in order. And you can also leave feedback. So let's say they made a mistake. You can go ahead and just leave a comment and give them feedback on ways they can improve that. As you can see, you can also tag multiple students per activity. So both Kelly and Rolando worked on this activity, and they created words using the letter tiles. And I just used old Scrabble tiles. And then this is an example of an Etch-a-Sketch, and the student was just working on short A words. So I just try to create a lot of different opportunities for students to practice maybe even the same skill. So just a few tips from me on using Seesaw and literacy stations. Go over digital citizenship often. It's really important for students to know their expectations, what is appropriate, what is not appropriate to be said in the comments. Make sure you specify when emojis can be used. I know my students love emojis, and they will use them any opportunity possible. So going over what your expectations are really important. Something I did in my classroom is I like to showcase great examples of student work in the hallway, and I would actually print out the QR code of their work similar to what I showed you in the listening station, and that way anybody who walked by with an electronic device could easily scan the QR code and immediately see that students' work. It really motivated my students to do their best because they love being able to share their work with a broader audience and to be celebrated. I would also make folders for each literacy station to also kind of organize what students are working on. So if you look over here at some of the student work, you'll see that I created folders for each literacy station. So this is an example of work on writing. So I could click it and I would see all of the work that this student has done on work on writing. So if I feel like Kelly hasn't been doing what she was supposed to in work on writing, I can just click on that folder and see exactly what she's uploaded. And then I would also use the information for parent-teacher conferences. This is a great tool to house all of the student work that you would like to share with parents. And parents really enjoy looking and seeing what their child has done each day, because you know you have those kids when you ask them when they get home, what did you do today? A lot of times their answer is, I don't know, or nothing. And this gives this parent a great opportunity to see what they're doing and then create that conversation with these students when they get home. All right, so we're nearing the end of our webinar. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them on the live chat, and then Jocelyn will provide you with the link for your CPE credit, and then she's also going to share with you the link to my presentation so that you can utilize it whenever you need to. And if you want to download and print any of the task cards, you are more than welcome. And if you have more ideas of task cards I should create, feel free to email me and I'll be happy to do that. And these are just some of the credits. If you really like my presentation, how it looked, you can use Slides Carnival. Some of the photographs were from Startup Stock Photos. And Seesaw is a really great website, and it provides a lot of presentation information as well. So some of the information I actually got straight from the Seesaw website. So thank you for joining us. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them on the live chat or email me at any time. All right, enjoy.